Hey guys, Craig McCormick here from DestructivePixels.com, and today I'm going to show you the post-processing techniques I used to take this picture of the Shanghai Skyline from this to this. Okay, so here I have this shot in the develop module inside Lightroom 5. Now, a lot of the edits that I did to this picture is in Lightroom. There are some stuff that I take it into Photoshop for, and I actually use OnOne's Perfect Effects 8 software plugin. You don't necessarily need to use that, but that's the plugin I use. I use the plugins from OnOne and Nick and all the rest of it. But let's go through and actually do the post-processing for this image. So first thing I want to do here is actually correct my profile corrections and do my chromatic aberrations to remove them inside the lens correction panel. And as you can still see, there are still some bowing from the buildings. If you actually look, especially here, you can actually see the buildings are bowing outwards. Thankfully, the Lightroom lens correction tool has the upright fix. All I need to do is click auto, and that's it fixed perfectly, job done. Now, let's jump back to the basics panel. The first thing I really want to do here is take down my highlights a lot, just to get some of that detail back in the sky here. And I really want to just bring some of that information back. For shadows, I don't really need to do anything. I think I'm fine here. For whites, I'm pretty much done, but I do need to get a black point. So I'm going to hold down my option key. I'm going to click and drag on the black marker until I can get a decent black point, somewhere around there. That's perfect. So let's just go back from there. So you can already see it's already making a big difference. So one thing I do definitely want to add at this point is some mid-tone contrast with clarity. That really does a lot. And let's increase some vibrance here just to get some more color in it because it is the raw file. And actually, let's just go over and add some general saturation as well. One thing I do kind of want to change here, this was taken during like a sunset kind of thing, but I want to make it a little bit more blue and maybe even a touch more magenta. I definitely end up doing a lot more of that in the final image, so I'm just going to lower this down just a touch to about there, just to make it a little bit more blue, and I'm just going to raise the magenta just a touch. But the real trick here is in the HSL panel and the split toning. So one thing I definitely want to do here for the saturation is just increase the saturation on the blues just slightly, but really it goes down into the luminance panel here. Actually, no, sorry, I was in the saturation panel for that. I just want to increase the saturation just a touch, and I want to darken inside my luminance panel for the HSL, aqua, and blue, just to bring that out, and I'll be able to see here, hopefully on screen, you can just see, if I toggle it on and off, you can see the difference here. It's done a lot of difference in the sky. It's really darkened up those tones. But one thing it really does help here is split toning, and I do use this on some images. It's quite rare, but it can help definitely emphasize either a sunset or a sunrise. We can actually really pull in and change the color of those highlights and the shadows. So one thing I want to do here is I just want to increase the hue of the highlight to just around an orangey color. It's not going to be much. It's only when I actually pull up the saturation you'll be able to see it. Now it looks a little insane at the minute on screen, obviously, but I will change that in just a minute because I want to change the shadows to a nice little blue color. Let's go about there. Let's actually have a quick check. All right, now this balance slider is where it does all the hard work for you. So basically balances between the highlights and the shadows, and I want to make it really balanced towards the shadow area. And that's looking about right. If I just turn that off and on, you can actually see it there. It really does pull in and actually give it a warm magenta-y kind of feel. It does actually quite a good job there. I actually quite like that. I definitely want to add in some sharpening here because this is just a raw file. So I definitely want to add in some sharpening here. I generally go to about 60 or so for my files. I'm shooting on a Canon 5D Mark III with their 16-35 lens. I just want to back off on that sharpening a little bit. One thing I am definitely going to do here is masking. So I'm holding down my Alt or Option key, and I'm just going to drag to the right until you can really just see all the detail in the buildings there, because you can see basically it's a mask. Anything with white is being sharpened, anything that is black is not being sharpened, and you can see all those little white spots. That is actually sensor dust, because I have a big stopper, which is a big glass filter that I put on front of my camera to do a big long exposure. This shot was actually like 5-minute long exposure, so there is some dust and some marks on the on the glass, and it has actually shown up on screen, so I will try and get rid of that. It will be a bit tedious, so I'll probably cut that out of the video. I'll show you doing some of them, but I definitely will not make you sit through the whole process of me doing all that. One thing I do want to do, I want to make a nice little vignette on this, just to darken up the edges a bit. Let's see, about there is probably okay. Actually, I want to bring in the midpoint just a bit, and I want to protect those highlights as well. Excuse me. And actually I want to feather that a lot more just to make it softer. So let's see, that's before and after, so it really does bring in right into the middle, because this middle bit really is the focus bit of the image. The buildings on the side are great, but it's this the TV Pearl Tower, which is a big iconic landmark in Shanghai. That's really what we're going after. But one thing I definitely need to do at this point is go to my graduated filter, and I need to darken up the sky and also the water. So I'm gonna just hold down my shift key and click and drag. So the marker is basically at the coastline here, and I'm just going to drop that there. Now, one thing I definitely want to do is I want to change the white balance of this sky here. So I am actually going to lower it down the blues just a bit, just to punch out those blues. But I'm also then going to raise the magenta a bunch, just to bring through some of that magenta color. So even if I just toggle that on and off, you can see the difference it's made, especially up here. It's really made a nice difference, but it really does start to make a difference when you start to lower the exposure. Now, I don't need to do it that much, maybe about 30 is probably about right. Yeah, that looks about right. I want to, actually, let's lower down the highlights just a bit more, just to try and save some of the highlights around this section here. For shadows, I think I'm pretty much good on shadows. Actually, no, I need to open up the shadows so I can fix some of the problem, because obviously the graduated filter, if you look at the top of the buildings here, you can actually see that the graduated filter is actually affecting those buildings. So all I'm going to do is just bring up the shadow slider a bunch, and that fixes that. They basically don't do much at all to affect the buildings anymore, so that is fine. Let's increase the clarity just to punch out that sky a bit more. Actually, that's all I really need to do here at that point. Yeah, that is looking good. But let's also add another graduated filter, and this one is going to be for the water at the bottom. So again, holding down my shift key and just dragging up. I'm going to drag a bit further past the water here, just to about there. And one thing I'm definitely going to do again is changing my white balance. So I want to make this, it kind of almost looks like a muddy, bluey gray kind of color, and that's really because the water here in Shanghai is not exactly a crystal blue. So I want to make it look a little bit more blue. So I'm definitely going to be increasing that white balance to the blue for the water. Don't need to do it too much. And let's just punch through just a bit of magenta, just to make it look like the magenta in the sky is reflecting back on the water. Now, I definitely want to just lower my exposure just a touch, because it really doesn't need to be super dark, but I do want to darken up a bit. That looks about right from there. Let's see what else. Let's just increase the clarity just a bit, just to punch through it. You can really see it if I just punch it up. You can really see a nice difference in there. I want to, actually, let's just increase the saturation a touch just to make it look a little bit more blue. And yep, that is looking good. I'm actually pretty happy with what that's doing. Now, I do want to do some very selective adjustments with the brush adjustment tool. And that is because if you look at these buildings here, let me just lower my brush size. These main buildings here, the big silver shining buildings, we've got the Pearl Tower here, and we've got the HSBC Tower, and we've got what's often referred to here in Shanghai as the bottle opener, because it's got that big hole in the top and it looks like a bottle opener. We also have a couple of buildings here being constructed. It looks a little bright. It's lacking mid-tone contrast, and really what brings out mid-tone contrast is clarity. So actually I'm gonna have a nice small-ish brush. I'm gonna increase the feather touch. I'm gonna have a nice low flow at about 50%. I'm gonna have auto mask on. Basically what that's gonna help doing is maintaining that I'm just gonna be painting those buildings. I'm really just gonna be painting the Pearl Tower, these two buildings here, and these two buildings here. That's all I really want to do. I just want to bring in some contrast. So let's increase that clarity a whole bunch. And actually, let's just increase the contrast as well in it, just to be sure. And let's just start painting away. So I've actually got my overlay set to show, which is just if you press your O key on your keyboard. It's just so I can know what I'm actually painting. And let's just start painting away here. Just gonna do it really quickly for you guys. But it seems to be holding definitely within the lines. I don't mind if it goes onto this building here a little bit. I really don't mind all that much. I just want to make sure that I paint these buildings. I just want to go over here and paint with this. Again, a nice low flow brush really helps me maintain this, because you really don't want to apply this kind of thing in a big block at 100%. You really want to be selective with it. And this is what I love the auto mask feature for on the brush, is simply because I just got to paint around that and it completely missed out that midsection. Now this building here might be a little bit more complicated, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more, and I just want to start painting away here. Just paint away at one of these bulbs here. Just start painting up. There we go. Now let's just paint this bit here. I think I want to add actually some of this contrast into these buildings here. They are lacking as well. I just want to punch through and make sure they get some good contrast. Actually, once I paint this building here, again, this auto mask feature is very, very helpful. It basically just helps me paint the buildings, nothing else. So let me turn my overlay off. Yeah, that you can see the difference there in that mid-tone contrast in the buildings. Let me turn that off. It might take a sec. You can just see it just kind of punches through. It just kicks a little bit more contrast in there. Actually, I'm going to increase the clarity just a bit more. I'm actually going to go to about there. That looks about right. Let me just turn that off and on. Yeah, you can definitely see a difference there. It's really nice and punching through. All right, I'm actually gonna add it to this building here. Let me turn my overlay back on so I can see what I'm actually painting. And I'm just going to paint it really nice, haphazardly onto this building. I'm just trying to be very quick for you guys, because I do not want to waste your time here with you watching me basically do this shot all the way from the beginning again. Actually, let's just paint it in this, because this building is far away and it's definitely losing some contrast. So I think we are okay with that one. Let's just paint some on this building as well. Just want to, especially for the add some clarity here, so we can really pull out that orange color that's reflecting, because the sun is actually setting behind me when I'm taking the shot, so that's why you actually see the sun reflecting here on this building. So actually, let's turn this brush layer on and off. So yeah, you do see that difference, especially in those buildings. Really, really nice. All right, so let's close that adjustment brush tool, and I want to just zoom out once again, just so I can check. I do need to remove those spots, but let's also do a before and after. So that's before, that's after. So you can see you can make a really big difference really, really quickly in Lightroom. I'm always really impressed by what you can do inside Lightroom. But let's go ahead and actually try and remove some of these spots. Now, I want to turn the Visualize Spot tool on, and I'm going to do this very, very quickly here. I just want to increase that there. Now, this is probably where my computer's going to start lagging, because it's really going to be pushing this. Let's just paint there. There. I mean, this is the real beauty of Lightroom and its Visualize Spot tool. Whoa, where is this going? Okay. My computer just pulled away like an insane amount. There we go. This is going to be the problem area where there are tons of spots. So I'm going to just plop that one there. Let's see how that does. Seems to be doing all right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to lower my brush slightly, and I'm actually just going to paint away, because that's the great thing with Lightroom 5 now. The spot heal brush is also, it works as an actual brush now, so that's really, really helpful. It really does help try and remove distracting elements. I'm just going to click very, very quickly here. There, there. This glass was so filthy. I really should have cleaned it, but I didn't. But that's why you have stuff like this in Lightroom. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this image up, and we'll jump ahead to just before I am about to throw this image into Photoshop and do some final finish touching to it. Alright, so that's me finished with removing all those spots from there. So I just jumped ahead just to save you time from watching me do all that kind of stuff, because it takes a long time to do, especially because that glass was actually really quite filthy. But before I throw this over into Photoshop, I might as well just show you again another quick before and after. I'm just going to hit my backslash key, and that's before, the raw file straight out of camera, and that's after. As you can see, you can really do a lot with Lightroom, but I do want to do some finishing touches inside of Photoshop. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to the edit in menu, and most people would go to edit in Photoshop. In this instance it's a Photoshop CC 2014, but this time I want to open it up as a smart object inside of Photoshop. Now why do I do that? Basically what it does is it takes the raw file and it throws it into Photoshop, but as a smart object. And what that means is I'll be able to double click on the smart object and I'll be able to open up Camera Raw, and all the settings that we've done here inside Lightroom I'll be able to change if I change my mind. And that's the real beauty thing about smart objects, is you can constantly change it. And even with filters and stuff like that, because I'm going to be using a plugin from OnOne called Perfect Effects 8, and what you can do is, even if you do all the presets and all the plugins and stuff that you want, and it's still changeable. So see, I'll just show you here as an example. You can see here that they have this little icon here, and if I was to double click on it, it's going to open up Camera Raw inside of Photoshop eventually. Please. There we go. And as you can see here, all those settings, all those adjustments and stuff that we made inside of Lightroom, we can again change if we want to. Now I'm not going to do that just now, but that's the beauty of doing a smart objects. But now I want to do some final little adjustments, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a plugin from OnOne called Perfect Effects 8, as I said before. Now this is a plugin and it's a paid plugin, but I do use both software from OnOne and Nick. I love all their stuff. But let's just jump ahead here and go to Perfect Effects 8. Now, as I said, because it's a smart object, any changes I make inside of this plugin, I'll be able to, if I decide I don't like it in the future, I can totally change it, and it's completely non-destructive. That is the real beauty here of smart objects. That's why I really do like them that much. The first thing I want to do is actually want to jump over to the filters here, and I want to add a little bit of a tone enhancement, because it really does help quite a lot. So I'm gonna go, where is my tone enhancer? Here we go. Tone enhancer, there we go. I completely missed it then. And what I want to do is I want to add a bit of a mid contrast boost here, because it still is a little bit on the less punchy side. I just want to make sure this is okay. And the real cool thing here, let me just shut this little navigator panel here. You can toggle it on and off, and I'm actually quite happy with what it's doing, but I do want to save the highlights a little bit. Just increase the highlight contrast, because you can see here, it's just want to increase the highlight contrast. And what I also want to do, I want to increase the shadow contrast? Let's have a quick play here. It's just increasing the it's just basically hiding the contrast in the shadows, because it can get a little dark down here. I just want to lower that a little bit, and that is actually looking okay. Let's just do another toggle on and off. I'm actually liking what that's doing, but one thing I do actually definitely want to do is add a photo filter here. Now let me just type in here, photo, there we go. Of course it hasn't done it because it's gonna not be helpful. There we go, photo filter. There we go. Now, which one is it I'm really looking for? I want to add some warming to it, but I really want to lower this down by a lot. I really want to lower this strength. Let's try increasing the strength a bit to about 10, but I actually want to lower this saturation by a lot. To about, let's go to about 11. Polarizer, let's just increase that a bit just to kick through it. Oh, I actually just realized I didn't add that as a new layer. Whoops. So one thing I'm going to do, add new layer. I'm just going to drag this down below and add my tone contrast again, because all that hard work I just did for my tonal contrast. Okay, mid-tone contrast, there we go. What was it? I pulled in some highlights, and I definitely pulled in the shadows quite a lot. And one thing, right, so let's just toggle that on and off. Yep, that's looking about right. So let's jump ahead into the photo filter, and I really want to lower the opacity on this. I just want to give it a little bit of a boost. Don't want to go too crazy on it. So if I turn that on and off, yeah, you can see that's a real nice difference there. You can just see it's just adding that extra little bit of purpley blue tone that I was talking about. It is an orange kind of almost contrast thing to it, but it just increases it just a bit, just to give it a nice little color. I'm going to lower the layer opacity because you can adjust each layer individually here, because you see the tone enhancer and you can change the layer opacity of that. And all I'm just going to do is I'm just changing and lowering the photo filter opacity, because I rarely ever have something at 100%. I just want to take it to about 40. It's probably about right, maybe a little touch less actually, to about 41. So let's just, if I click back here on the bottom layer, it was basically the original layer that we threw in from Photoshop into OnOne. So that is the image that we did inside of Photoshop. If I jump back there, you can see it's added that kind of magenta-y tone, which I really like in this image. Okay, so that's the adjustments done on the photo filter. So again, I want to add another new layer, and I want to go here into my dynamic contrast. I'm just going to go here to natural, just to kind of punch it through a little bit. Now, again, as you can see, it's adding a lot of really hardcore punchy contrast. If I was to zoom in here a little bit, it might be a little bit tough for it to render. It's going to take a little moment, but it does actually add in. It even kind of almost goes to like a sharpening kind of level. So one thing I do want to do is kind of almost leave a lot of this to default, but I do want to kind of lower the opacity on it. So I'm just going to go to about, actually let me, because you can see here if I turn it on and off, you can really see it punch through, especially in the buildings here with that really nice dynamic contrast. But I'm just going to go in here and fit to frame just so I can get a better understanding of kind of what it's doing. You can see it's doing a lot actually for the sky here. It's going to take a little moment to render because I'm doing a tutorial and computers know and they want to make you panic. So let me just turn that off and on again. So you can see it really does punch that contrast through into the buildings. That's really what your focus is going to be on. It does actually help a little bit in the sky, definitely a little bit. So let's actually do a quick before and after for inside of OnOne. So again, that's the original that we pulled in from Lightroom. It looks days different from what we've already done. And this was very, very quick here inside of OnOne. This is why I like plugins. You can do a lot of this stuff within Photoshop itself, but you jump to a plugin, you do a couple of presets, you adjust it to how you want and how you like it, and you're done. That's really the beauty of it here. So that's actually looking pretty cool. I'm very happy with that. So all I'm going to do here is click apply. Let me just go over here and one more time. I just let's just increase it on the highlights a little bit. Yeah, just to kind of punch that through a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to just click, I'm just going to click apply at this point. Now it's going to go through and apply the effect here. It will take a little bit longer because it is a smart object, but remember, the beauty of the smart object is that I'll be able to change it. And that's really the cool thing here. So let's just go ahead and let it apply here. All right, now it's going to jump back to Photoshop and it's just going to apply it all. So that's the before, again, as you can see. So you can see that is the before and after. So let me just toggle that on and off. So that was the original that we pulled in from Lightroom, and then that's it afterwards. So that's it pretty much done at that point. If I was to zoom in here, nice at, let's go 50%, you can see just how sharp the image really looks. And that's just by really the dynamic contrast is what helped with that extra level of real punch sharpening here. It really did bring out a lot of detail here, especially in the buildings, especially in this building here. You can really see a lot of the good detail here. It's all been brought through from the building. So I think that's pretty much it at this point. I am now done. Hopefully you've actually learned something, or you've at least enjoyed watching me process this image again. So I've been Craig McCormick. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.